And he talks about taking chances.
Here's the Doc charging the enemy with an unloaded camera. Get the expression on Doc's face, Bill.
He looks more frightened than the tiger.
He is.
Just what you have on your mind, Doc.
I'll tell you what I had on my mind. I was thinking of the inconsistency of civilization. The beast of the jungle, killing just for his existence, is called savage. The man, killing just for sport, is called civilized.
Yeah.
It's a bit contradictory, isn't it?
Now, just a minute. What makes you think it isn't just as much sport for the animal as it is for the man? Now, take that fellow right there, for instance. There never was a time when he couldn't have gotten away. But he didn't want to. He got interested in hunting me. He didn't hate me for stalking him, any more than I hated him for trying to charge me. As a matter of fact, we admired each other.
Perhaps. But would you change places with the tiger?
Well, not now.
Here comes that bad luck lady again. Third time tonight.
Here, let me shuffle him.
Wait a minute. Don't evade the issue.
Yes, come, speak up.
I asked you a question.
Yes.
You did? Oh, I forgot.
No, you didn't. I asked you if there'd be as much sport in the game if you were the tiger instead of the hunter.
Got you now, Bob. Well, that's something I'll never have to decide.
No?
Listen here, you fellas. This world's divided into two kinds of people, the hunter and the hunted. Now, luckily, I'm a hunter. Nothing can ever change that.
Hello and welcome to Book versus Movie. This is a podcast where we read books that have been adapted into movies and then we try to decide which we like better, the book or the movie. I am Margot P. of coloniabook.com and this is my good friend and co-host, Margot D. of Brooklyn-Fitchick.
Hi, everyone.
Excuse me. So we have I'm still recovering from my weird mystery virus. We have a really interesting book and movie today. This is a story that almost every American student has to read in high school. We get assigned this story. It's a short story, and it's had many iterations in our culture. It's something that we've many television shows and movie adaptations and excuse me. So we're going to talk about The Most Dangerous Game. And we're going to talk about the original movie version, and there's lots of fun stuff we're going to talk about with this one. But before we get to that, if you're brand new, this is a podcast where we read books that have been adapted into movies, but it's not always a book per se. Like today, we're talking about a short story that appeared in a magazine. Sometimes it might be a magazine article or a poem or a play. As long as it's a movie that has been adapted from some kind of a literary source, we will consider it. So we are always looking for suggestions. And if you would like to suggest future episodes, or if you would like to meet other listeners of this podcast or interact with us, there's a few places where you could do that on the internet.
Be sure to like our basic Facebook page. You just type in Book Vs. Movie Podcast. But it's better to join our Facebook group. And it's a private Facebook group, and you do have to join. Once again, that's Book Vs. Movie Podcast group. We just talk about books and movies there. It's a nice space to hang out for that. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads, and all those places you spell out book versus and movie. And then we have an old-timey email, bookversusmoviepodcast, spelled it all out, at gmail.com. And if you would like some stickers, we're going to get a new vendor for them, by the way, but we do have a stack that we have to give away. So just email us your address, and we will drop them in the mail for you.
And if you really enjoy the show and would like to help keep us in books and movies, you can also support us on Patreon.
Yes, so that's Patreon. We've been doing the show for over 10 years now, so we're putting all the things from 2021 and then previous to that on our Patreon wall. We have over 160 episodes there. Most recent ones are Dog Day Afternoon, based on a magazine article, by the way. Logan's Run, Legally Blonde, and The War of the Worlds. Those are just some of them that are on our Patreon wall. So all of you that support us there, thank you so very much. It just helps us get the books and the movies and the costs of the show. But also another way you can help us out is if you can just leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts, or just tell a friend about the show. That would be amazing.
Yeah, we really appreciate when you share the show with people in your life. That's so great. So today we're talking about The Most Dangerous Game. And I was kind of surprised. I don't think I've read this story since high school.
Not since high
and
school.
I don't think so. And I was surprised how much of it I actually remembered, how many details. I guess it made more of an impression on me than I thought it did. I thought it had. Let's talk about our author. His name is Richard Connell.
Richard Connell was born in Poughkeepsie, New York, October 17th, 1893. He was a short story writer. He had always been a writer. He's from the East Coast. His father had served in the Senate for a little while. He served in World War I himself. He went to Harvard, served in World War I, and then came back to the States. He worked in advertising and then became, we find this a lot, by the way, a lot of creative people in advertising that go into writing full time. He was a mainly short story writer, but he also came up with the original story idea for Meet John Doe, which was nominated for an Academy Award. This was printed 100 years ago. It was in Collier's magazine in 1924. So we picked an anniversary for some reason for this thing. But he has written over 300 short stories. This is the one that he's most known for. And he passed away very young in 1949 at the age of 56 from a heart attack. All I could tell, he was like a nice man and then just hardworking and kind of lived a dream life if you think about it. But he came up with this idea for the story because in the 1920s, there was this, after World War I, we had the flu, we had this major world war. There was all this money being pumped into the economy in America and around the world. So there was raising this class of people that had downtime, and the sport of hunting became something of the leisure class, something they could enjoy around the world. I mean, mainly in Africa.
Yeah. Kind of like when we talked about Hemingway.
Right.
He was very into that whole scene.
Right. And it was it's something that, wealthy people could do. They could go to another country, and there was different kinds of animals that were wanted. They were considered very exotic, and people didn't seem to have a problem with it. 100 years later, we have a different attitude about these things, but at the time, there was this idea of hunting for your family or hunting for a living, which is how my mom's people grew up, but it's different altogether when it's your hobby and it's something you travel for. My friend's father does this. He goes to Africa all the time to do these kind of hunts. Anyway, the story idea is basically like, what is it? What is a man? What do you do when you're under pressure? We're supposed to be the most intellectual creature on the planet. Are we, that's the whole point of this story. Like, what is more ideal than hunting another man? Because they can actually reason. Right. Versus an animal, which at the time, especially, people would be like, well, what are animals? They can't feel anything. They can't, they're just made to be eaten and hunted, I guess.
Oh, my. But it's true, though. And I remember in high school, we have the whole conversation about, it's called The Most Dangerous Game. And it's using game with a double meaning. So game is a game like that you play, a gambit. And it's also game as in prey, as in something you hunt, like a fox or whatever.
Right.
You would refer to that as game. And so the most dangerous game is man himself. So let's talk a little bit about this story for those who maybe didn't read it in high school.
It's about a group of men. It's a big game hunter, and I'm a big Below Deck fan, so I love this, that they're all on a yacht going around the Caribbean. Like, this is like just amazing for me. But his name is Sanger Rainsford. If you ever want a waspy name, that's it. Sanger Rainsford. He's from New York City, and they're on a ship going to the Amazon to do some hunting. The ship, he falls overboard during this trip. And in the story, we're talking about the story right now. And in the story, he falls off the ship, he swims, and he winds up ashore at this island. And there's this man named Zaroff who has a very thick he's a Russian, Russian Ukraine. They were called Cossacks, the fighters from there. Anyway, so there are two Cossacks. There's General Zaroff, and then there's a man named Ivan, and they live on this island, and they take him in, and they make him feel comfortable, and he's like, boy, this is a nice, fancy place. What's your deal here? And he says, well, as a matter of fact, I'm a hunter and I hunt people just like you do. I hunt animals just like you do. But I found it very boring because animals have no feeling. They can't think back strategically. And so he says, so I've started hunting men. And Rainsford is like, huh? I don't like that very much. And he's like, well, too bad. So I'm going to be hunting you next. So what you need to do is try to get as much sleep. And then tomorrow I'll give you a 3-hour start. And then you go off in the woods. And if you can last, overnight, I think you get a bit.
I think in the book it's longer.
I think it's like 3 days.
I was going to say, I think it's like 3 days. And I think we mentioned this, but so Rainsford is a world famous, everybody knows who he is, big game hunter. Again, very, very kind of a Hemingway sort of a figure. And Zaroff, who's the guy that owns the island in the story is called Ship Trap Island.
It's a little on the nose.
It's a little bit showing their hand. And he is also a big game hunter. And so when he can't believe his good luck that of all the people that have shown up on his beach, it's this Rainsford. And we learn that Zaroff, he has sort of manipulated the shoreline and lights and sounds and such to trap ships so that people end up on his island, and then he can hunt them.
Yes, and so this is happening. So also, we were just saying off the air that there was Darwin's evolution and the survival of the fittest, which is also kind of playing into all of the might makes right. That's the justification for all of this. Rainsford is appalled that they would even attempt this, but he's basically explained this is the way it's going to be. Either you participate in this or Ivan here will rip you apart. So he goes into the woods or the jungle, and he fends for himself, and he makes a trapping pit. Zaroff thinks that he won, that the man fell off a cliff. When he goes to his room that night, Rainsford is in the bedroom. And he's hiding behind a curtain, and he can hear the dogs in the background. And he's basically saying, well, I think you won. And he's like, oh, I haven't won quite yet. I have one more thing to do.
There's a final battle.
And we just hear the dogs off in the distance barking. So we assume that this is Rainsford throwing Zaroff to the dogs.
Yeah, it ends kind of abruptly.
Yeah.
And I'll just read you the end again. In case you can't tell, we spoil everything here. The ending is very different in the story than it is in the movie. So this is the end. Again, Zaroff goes into his bedroom, and there's Rainsford. He has survived. He has made it through the allotted time that he's supposed to be running. It says, the general, that's Zaroff, sucked in his breath and smiled. I congratulate you, he said. You have won the game. Rainsford did not smile. I am still a beast at bay, he said, in a low, hoarse voice. Get ready, General Zaroff. The general made one of his deepest bows. I see, he said. Splendid. One of us is to furnish a repast for the hounds. So one of us is going to be food for the hounds. The other will sleep in this very excellent bed. On guard, Rainsford. And then there's a ... And it says, he had never slept in a better bed, Rainsford decided, and that is the end.
So we assume he's won.
We can only assume that he won.
Right.
And that Zaroff ended up being fed to the dogs.
Right. And the story is very, very popular. We've talked about it before about magazines at the time. They were as thick as phone books were at one point. They had so many stories in them. And Hollywood, the movie machine was gaining in popularity. So this story gets bought by Hollywood. It actually takes a while for them to make a movie out of it because they're trying to figure out how to film it. Quickly, soon after this is published, he and his wife move to Beverly Hills and he starts working on screenplays, and that's what he does with his life. So we're fast forwarding now to 1932. America's now in the Depression, the Great Depression.
Prohibition.
There's lots going on to bum people out. So here we were just a few years ago. America was on the rise. Everything was great. And now everything is really tough. And so people are in a survival mode. But they're also going to the movies to escape whatever it is that bothers them. It's like 10 cents to go to the movies, and it's air conditioned, and spend their whole weekends at the movies. So, and I was just saying, as I was watching this today for the second time, more movies need to be an hour. I like me an hour long film.
It's a good, quick, yeah.
Yeah.
I was watching, so this is, again, 1932. It's pre-Hays Code.
Right.
So it's compared to stuff that you see after World War II, for example. It's extremely racy. It's produced by David Selznick. This is way before Gone with the Wind. It is in black and white. It is the year before, or not the year before. I watched an interview with Faye Wray, who is our female lead. And in this version, we have a female character, which does not exist in the original version. And Faye Wray was saying that, and she lived to a very nice
something.
90-something, and sharp as a tack. And I was watching an interview with her, and she was saying that around this time during the Great Depression, she was filming a movie every month. Every 4 weeks, she was filming a new movie. So right after she films this movie, she films the movie that she's most known for, King Kong. And they use a lot of the same sets and stuff, but the point is that Hollywood is churning these movies out at a monthly pace, and there's such a demand for these films because of what's kind of going on in the culture. Mm-hmm. And this is again a story that people would have known pretty well.
Yes, like we
even
said,
though it's like what 4 years old at this point.
Yeah,
no, 10. I was very impressed with this film.
It's really, well, let's play the trailer. And then, okay, so we're going to play the trailer right now, and then we'll talk about this movie.
Doesn't Brank Island mean anything to you?
There's something wrong.
I'm not trying to break in, but I've been in a wreck.
Welcome to my poor fortress. This is Mr. Robert Rainsford, who hunts big game so adventurously.
Glad to meet you.
We barbarians know that it is after the chase and then only that man revels.
That's the savage's idea everywhere.
One night as I lay in my tent, a terrible thought crept like a snake into my brain. Hunting was beginning to bore me. What I needed was not a new weapon, but a new animal.
You found one?
Yes.
You take half-drowned men from shipwreck and drive them out to be hunted.
And if one eludes me only till sunrise, he wins the game.
You murdering rat! I'm a hunter, not an assassin.
You killed!
Precisely, yes.
We can keep ahead of them that long.
Coming down.
One passion builds upon another.
To date, I have not lost. Here on my island, I hunt the most dangerous game.
We have two directors, Ernest Schoedsack and Irving Pickell. I hope I said that correctly. The story stars Joel McCrea. So handsome. He's
quite dashing. It's a very physical part.
I was reading about him, and Betty Davis and Joan Crawford and Katharine Hepburn said like he was the best actor that they ever worked with. And he apparently was kind of a square. He was married. He wasn't into carousing, but he did a ton of Westerns. If you look at his IMDb, it's filled to the brim with Westerns. We have Faye Wray. They have a woman in this story, which we don't have in the short story. We have it in our movie today. We also forgot to mention, and this is also a product of the time in the short story and the movie, is the racism. There is this idea that white men are more important than anybody else on the planet. We also have, I should say, Leslie Banks, plays Arzaroff, who's amazing.
He's really good. He's really scary.
Crept like a snake into my brain. Hunting was beginning to bore me.
Is that such a terrible thought, Count?
It is, my dear lady, when hunting has been the whip for all other passions. When I lost my love of hunting, I lost my love of life. Of love.
Well, you seem to have stood it pretty well.
I even tried to sink myself to the level of the savage. I made myself perfect in the use of the Tartar War Bow.
Tartar which?
Tartar War Bow. That one up there.
It's cute.
Even to this day, I prefer to hunt with it. But alas, even that was too deadly. What I needed was not a new weapon, but a new animal.
A new animal?
Exactly so.
You found one?
Yes. Here on my island, I hunt the most dangerous game.
The most dangerous game? You mean tigers?
Tigers? No. The tiger has nothing but his claws and his fangs.
I heard some queer beast howling back there along the water. Was that it?
It's no use, Rainsford. He won't tell. He won't even let you see his trophy room till he gets ready to take you on the hunt of the great what's-it.
My one secret. I keep it as a surprise for my...
We have Robert Armstrong plays Martin, the brother, and he's kind of this tipsy, drunken fool who's the brother of Faye Wray, and he's so good. He's so funny.
Yeah, he's really good. He's totally wasted every time we see him. He's also in King Kong.
Yes.
And then as Yvonne, the servant, the henchman of Zara, we have Noble Johnson, who is really interesting. He's an African-American character actor. He's not playing an African-American in this.
No, he's in whiteface
role at all. He's in whiteface. And he's also very frightening.
He was friends with Lon Chaney, who we talked about before. They went to high school together, of all things. And they had learned about makeup. This man was a movie producer for African-American films at the time. It's fascinating. In this story, and I think, like you said, I think it's really well done. So they use miniatures.
The effects are extremely impressive.
Really good. 90 years? You have to, it's pretty damn good. So it's a luxury yacht. They are going off of South America, and the men are talking.
I love the opening. Yeah, it's these rich men.
Very waspy.
They're on a yacht. A squillionaire, it's his boat. He's got an assortment of people on the yacht for his amusement. And one of them is Rainsford. He's called Bob Rainsford in the movie version. And he's just there to kind of amuse the rich guy. And the captain comes in and he's like, "Oh, sir, I don't know, this water, our course that we're on, it doesn't look good. I'm a little worried. I'm a little concerned." And the billionaire's like, "What do you get out of here with your concerns? Full steam ahead. We said we were going to go this way. We're going to go this way." They hit rocks. They hit coral. The boat capsizes. I mean, and again, a very impressive, the whole shipwreck.
It looks good.
It looks very good. I mean, I know they're in a little tank on a soundstage or whatever, but they do a lot with fog and light.
And sound.
It's a tremendous effect and sound.
Yeah.
And Rainsford is kind of clinging to the ship, and there's two other guys who have survived.
Right.
But then they get eaten by sharks.
And now I can't did Steven Spielberg see this? And then also Young Frankenstein, because there's a couple of scenes. Too. I was so we'll go into it. So he comes ashore, and that's where we meet Faye Wray and her brother Martin. And
yes, when he arrives at Zaroff's island,
after swimming for miles. I mean,
yeah, he swims and swims and swims and swims, and he shows up. He's exhausted, and he shows up at this castle that belongs to Zaroff. And there's already a man and a woman there, and they're wearing very fancy clothes. It's Faye Wray, who's absolutely gorgeous and so underrated.
Yes,
so underrated as an actress. So it's her, and the man is her brother.
Now, I'm afraid we have failed to hold the full attention of our audience.
Well, I expect it's rather difficult for Mr. Rainsford to concentrate on anything after all he's been through.
Oh, my dear lady, you are pleading for yourself. I can see the drooping of those lovely eyes. Excuse me. Provadeo naver.
You know, the Count's worse than a family governess. Every night he sends us off to bed like naughty children.
Oh, no, my dear. No. Charming children.
There. You hear that, sis? Now trot along upstairs and don't bother us grown-ups anymore.
Well, after that, I guess I'll have to go. Good night, Mr. Rainsford.
Good night.
They were also similarly shipwrecked sometime before, and they're just kind of hanging there. Zaroff tells Bob, "Oh, I'm glad you're here. Don't relax. The problem is like my boat slip. It needs to be repaired. So no boats can leave just yet, but we're working on it. Don't worry. Just hang out with these two, and we're gonna have a great time while we wait for the boat slip to be repaired." And so they're hanging out. Zaroff's playing the piano, and it's so great. I mean, it's very charming.
It really, really is. They're sitting around the fire. They have this piano playing, and eventually they get to talking about hunting. They say, like, not only is he a hunter, he wrote a book about hunting. He's like the expert, or Joel McCrea here is the expert of all time on hunting. And they have this whole conversation and they had it on the boat, now we're having it here about who is the most important creature on the planet, and the most dangerous game would be a human being. The human being would be the toughest thing ever. And Joel McCrea is like, I don't like that very much at all. And he's saying to him, well, I'm going to give you till you're going to leave at nightfall. I'm going to give you like a bit of a head start. You're going to leave with...
Yeah, he has a lot less time in the movie than he does in the original story. Yeah.
So has to get ready right away, and then he's going to bring Faye Wray with him because Zaroff is making it very clear, like, he's keeping her. She's in like a ball gown.
Ivan! Genghis? Your fangs and claws, Mr. Rainsford. Ivan!
Bob, what are they going to do?
I'm going to be hunted.
No, Miss Trowbridge. Outdoor chess. His brain against mine. His woodcraft against mine. And the prize?
The prize?
You may recall what I said last evening. Only after the kill does man know the true ecstasy of love.
Suppose you lose.
If I do not, what shall I say, find you between midnight and sunrise tomorrow, freedom for both of you.
I'm going with you.
No. He'll kill you, too.
Not at all. One does not kill a female animal. If you lose, I can easily recapture her alive.
All right. I'll take her with me, then. We'll set him a trail he'll remember.
It's only fair to advise you against Fog Hollow. Outdoor chess, Mr. Rainsford.
They have great chemistry. They really
do. And they're doing a lot of stunts.
Yeah.
They're running, they're talking. She is known. One of the things that Faye Wray is known for is her screaming. She's a good
very good scream queen. Probably the first scream queen.
And so they're running, they're setting traps for Zaroff, and they're trying to just outwit him. And something that he says, that Rainsford says, that he doesn't say in the story at all. At one point he says, like, oh, now I know what all those animals I hunted feel like.
Right.
Yeah. He has a realization, like maybe it's not such a great thing to be a hunter, which is not a conclusion he draws at all in the original story. It's a wonderful scene of them. They're running, they're hiding, there's waterfalls, there's swamps, there's ravines, And a lot of these same locations they're going to use also in King Kong. So if you remember, like when they're in the jungle in King Kong, it's the exact same place. They're being pursued by this madman and his servant and the hungry dogs. The servant killed by one of the booby traps that Faye Wray and Joel McCrea have left. And some of the dogs, that get taken care of here and there. One of the dogs seizes Joel McCrea, and you see them like fall off the waterfall. It's amazing stunts and effects.
Really well done.
You really buy it.
You're really buying it. Yeah. So he's falling over, you think, and with the dogs, and then he winds up back at the house. He shows up like, ta-da.
Guess what?
Guess what? I made it. He's got Ivan with him, and he has a few other henchmen kind of with him. He also hunts with a bow and arrow. That's like a big thing for him. But his whole thing's like, I'm just going to hunt with this bow and arrow. But then he brings other people when he realizes how tough of a competition that Rainsford is. So then he brings other people, and he makes it tougher. But anyway, Rainsford wins, so they get back to the house. Zaroff is going to says to him, "Oh, well, you got me." And as he's saying that, you can leave now. As he's saying that, he's reaching for a gun. And then he aims the gun, and then Rainsford takes the gun away from him. And then Rainsford grabs Faye Wray, and they're going into the basement, and they're being chased by one of Zaroff's boys that's chasing them.
Just one of these henchmen
that has nothing else to do. I guess that's how they live. That's how they earn their keep. He gets shot. And they escape in the boat, and even then, it's kind of terrifying because they're going away in this motorboat. But Zaroff wakes up and is gonna take one last chance to shoot at them with the bow and arrow. But alas, he falls over, and he falls over where the dogs are, and he has his hand reaching towards the sky, and they have that bright light, and then he falls over. It's really well done.
Why, you're not even wounded.
You hit the dog, not me. I took a chance and went over with him.
A clever trick, Rainsford. I cheerfully admit defeat. Here's the key of the boathouse. The door is in the trophy room. You and Miss Trowbridge may leave at once.
No!
It's extremely well done. I am so impressed by this film.
Yeah.
All of the performances are outstanding. There's this scene we forgot to mention, and it's not in the story at all, I don't think. When Rainsford first arrives, and they're like I said, they're hanging out, they're playing the piano. Faye Wray takes them aside, and she's like, "Listen, there were two other guys here before you got here. There were these two other sailors, and one day Zaroff took them down he says, let's go look at my trophy room, and then we never saw them again.
The trophy room.
Something is up." And so we see Rainsford goes to bed, Faye Wray goes to bed. The brother, Robert Armstrong, who's drunk, is staying up with Zaroff, with the general. And we hear the general go like, "Hey, why don't you come down and take a look at my trophy room?" And we never see him again. So we know there's something up with the trophy room. And Rainsford and Faye Wray go, and her name is Eve, like the symbolism. They were like, okay, we got to find out what's up with this trophy room. So they sneak down to where the trophy room is. And the trophies are people.
People!
And people! There's heads mounted, they're stuffed heads, and they're mounted on the walls. And then there's one like that, it's floating in a tank for some reason. I don't know why, but they're just all, and then we see, while they're in the trophy room, they hear somebody coming, and they come in, and they've got the brother, and the brother is dead. So there's that. It's all very terrifying and extremely well done. I just really liked this movie.
I did too. I really enjoyed it. It was super fun. That scene reminded me, I think they totally did that for Young Frankenstein. That whole, like, the body, like the head, and it's
It looks really like, it really does look like it, yeah.
It's really well done. They made this, I think simultaneously they filmed this and then King Kong, or they did it concurrently. They did it, right after the other. Yeah, they used to have like
I think
two
they
movies.
shot King Kong immediately after this.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But movies used to have like two movies. You would go to see a double header or even more. Like
Right.
That's where a lot of those original Bugs Bunny cartoons was from being like little shorts that they would play before a movie. But yeah, it did very well at the box office. All these people did well in their careers. It's a really interesting story, and it totally holds up. I mean, and we've seen versions of this, like you said. It became like it was the
On
inspiration.
Fantasy Island.
Oh, yes, Fantasy Island had one.
I like the choices that they made in this particular adaptation because it's certainly a very different ending, and then just to have the whole element of the female character, because she's tipping him off and she's helping him.
She's smart.
She's smart, and she's keeping up with him as they're running through the jungle, and I like the brother. And that whole element, I thought was I like
funny.
He's very funny.
I'll say the movie. I'll watch this movie again, and it makes me want to watch King Kong.
Watch this again. Me too. Me too.
But I remember reading this as a kid and really enjoying the story. I mean, it's a very well crafted story. It's a really great idea, and he does a great job with it.
Enjoyed it very much. Again, like if y'all have not availed yourself of the work of Faye Wray, do yourself a favor.
And also everything we should say, by the way, it's all in public domain. It's free. You can get.
Oh yeah, it's on YouTube. You just go. We'll put it in the Facebook group.
Yeah,
and y'all can watch it. It's so fun. It's a great movie.
Yeah, it's really well done. It really, really holds up.
So let's talk about what we're doing next.
I'm very excited about this. I was saying to Margot, it's middle of summer. We're having a heat wave in New York. It's super hot. Every day it feels long and hot and tiresome. And it's made me, after watching this and then reading about Joel McCrea's career, I'm like, I'm in the mood for a Western. And so we decided to go to Elmore Leonard, who we've never covered before, and he's an amazing writer that we should talk about. So we're going to do 3:10 to Yuma. It's a short story, easy to get, very easily available, and we're going to talk about the 2007 version. I might watch both versions. There's one that came out in the 50s, but we're going to watch the 2007 version.
Yes. I was trying to think if we've ever done, the only thing I could think of that's even close to being a Western is The Gambler, when we did The Gambler.
Oh, that was so much fun.
That was fun.
That was super fun. So I thought that would be really good. So we're going to be covering that next. Easily available. Both of them are easily available. But please send us your suggestions for books and movies. All those places I mentioned before. Our email, once again, is bookversusmoviepodcast@gmail.com. And Margot, where can they find you?
You can find me online at coloniabook.com, and all my social media callouts are at She's Not Your Mama. And where can they find you?
You could find me at brooklynfitchick.com. I'm at brooklynfitchick for Instagram and Threads, and then I'm at brooklynmargot for TikTok and for Twitter. All right, everyone. We'll be back next week with a new episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Book versus Movie podcast. We're a part of the Frolic Podcast Network. You could find more podcasts you will love at frolic.media/podcasts. You could find us on Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, and Instagram at Book versus a Movie. Just spelled it all out. We have a Patreon page. Type in there Book vs. Movie Podcast, where you can find 8 years worth of shows. You can follow Margot D on social media at Brooklyn Margot and also Brooklyn Fitchick. You can find Margot P at She's Nacho Mama. Thank you again for listening, and please be sure to send along your suggestions for the show. Remember, the book needs to be easy to get your hands on, and the movie has to be streaming on a major platform. We will be back soon with a new episode.